The anime starts when our protagonist Reiji decides to play the new VR game called Dendrogram, where he is welcomed by Cheshire, a Control 13 AI whose function is to welcome new players and share the game mechanics. Reiji decides to start his new gaming life as Ray Starling, and changes his appearance to suit his style. Ray is also given an embryo whose main function is to protect its master when they evolve into its further forms. Cheshire also shares the world map with Ray, who decides to visit the Altar Kingdom to start his new adventure. Before leaving, Ray asks Cheshire about the mission system, and Cheshire claims that Ray can become anyone that he desires, like an adventurer or a king, as there are infinite possibilities. After that, Ray is thrown at the entrance of Altia, the kingdom's capital, and as he roams around the city, he has an accidental encounter with Liliana Grandia, who is in a hurry to find her sister, so she shares her contact information and leaves. Soon, Ray gets a message that a hard quest is activated with its main focus on finding Miliana, Liliana's sister. Ray realizes that he has to find a senior player to help him along the quest, so he visits Shu Starling, who is acting as his big brother in the game. When Ray finds Shu, he realizes that Shu is a bear, and he asks Ray to share that piece of paper. When Ray shares the paper, Shu realizes that Miliana has gone near a dangerous place that is infested with huge insects, so Shu asks Ray to hurry. If NPC players die in this world, they remain dead, and there is no way to restart missions. Ray and Shu hurry to the location, where Ray also asks Shu about the penalty for dying during missions, and Shu tells him that he will remain offline for 1 whole day, while in the game 3 whole days will pass. The duo meets up with Liliana, who is having a hard time defeating so many monsters at once, but before they can relax, their team gets attacked by huge monsters. Shu takes the lead to attack them head on, but as there are a lot of monsters, Liliana asks Ray to take Miliana to safety. Even though Ray and Miliana run towards the gate, they get attacked by one of the monsters, so he asks Miliana to run as fast as she can, but the monster attacks Miliana after hitting Ray, so he asks the embryo to help his dire situation, and the embryo listens to his wish and hatches into a beautiful girl named Nemesis. Nemesis turns itself into a sword, and both of them attack the monster head on, killing it in one blow, and they manage to flee from the forest too. Milania finally reunites with Liliana, and Shu also appears from underground, which completes Ray's first mission. In an alternate dimension, 2 swords talk with each other that their mission of killing NPC failed, even though one of them released those monsters on them and praises the capability of Shu and the new player Ray, who also defeated one of the monsters. Even so, he is just a level 0 player. Elsewhere in the town, Shu treats Ray and Nemesis with yummy treats, but Ray gets a message that he is hungry, so logs out to eat some food. After some time, Ray gets back and Nemesis is served more delicious food that she enjoys. Ray asks Shu about the evolving forms of embryos. Shu claims that embryos' human form depends on their masters, but their fighting form changes as they level up, leading towards more possibilities that fascinate Ray. He also asks Shu why Liliana has such a hostile relationship with Shu, which makes Shu confess that about a year ago, there was a fight between the kingdoms of Altar and Drife, in which most of the main forces of superior warriors from Altar refused to take part, even though Drife Kingdom's warriors were taking the lead. The conflict led to the death of many soldiers, and Altar also lost some of its land, and the reason that Liliana hates him is that he also didn't take part in that war. Shu further claims that as the Altar Kingdom is getting weaker every day, most of the players join Drive Kingdom, which makes Ray a bit hopeful as he wants to be much stronger to be one of the great warriors that can take part in wars. The next day, Ray gets himself a new costume, and Shu shares a job catalog with him in which he realizes that he also got some jobs that are of paladin level. So Shu informs him that as he defeated a huge monster yesterday, he is getting these jobs, but he also claims that there are some other formalities that Ray has to follow before starting, which Ray completes. Ray and Nemesis head towards their second mission, where they meet Rook in Babylon. Ray decides to help them through his healing magic, and the duo decides to show their appreciation by taking them to a tea party. After that, Ray and Nemesis go to another training arena, but they get attacked by another unknown powerful player, who ultimately kills Ray. Ray joins the game after 24 hours just to meet Nemesis, who is depressed that she couldn't protect Ray and cries, but Ray cheers her up by claiming that he is still here and they will get another chance to defeat that player killer. With new motivation, Nemesis and Ray go towards a tomb as there are a lot of player killers roaming around the kingdom, which makes Nemesis scared as she doesn't like ghostly creatures. As they enter the tomb, they encounter a lot of monsters and manage to defeat them, but as they decide to go down, they get attacked by another person named Figaro, who is one of the king's superior warriors, but he immediately apologizes, claiming that he thought they were just monsters, and decides to take care of the player killer as an apology and leave. The next day, Rei meets up with Rook, where he gets the news that Figaro has taken care of the player killers from one location, but as other player killers have also retreated from other locations, they assume that they got attacked by other people at the same time. As they talk, another person sits at their table and introduces herself as Marie Adler, who also works as a part-time journalist. Marie claims that she knows what went down in those areas and decides to share her information in exchange for some money. Marie starts her story by claiming that 3 gangs were working together on this heinous crime. Marie shares her information about each location one by one on a projector screen starting from the south, where Figaro took control and defeated the ringleader like a cup of tea. She also shares the fights on the east and where the Lunar Society took over and Tsukuyo Fuso defeated the PKs, as well as the west end where Lele took the lead and defeated the gang barehanded. Marie then tells them that only one person was attacking the player in the north, where Rei and Nemesis were attacked. Marie also tells them that even though the hero almost obliterated the whole forest, the criminal scouting the area managed to flee. This was the same person who attacked Rei and Nemesis, so they decide to visit the place, but as they get there, they meet up with Cheshire, who is there to put the nailing stone for the forest to grow as it used to be. Cheshire claims that it is very rare that a player can come to his domain, but claims that it might be because of Nemesis. Rei then asks Cheshire about the punishment of criminal players, and Cheshire claims that they only imprison them when they get defeated, which Rei finds unfair. But soon they decide to leave, so Cheshire gives them a hint of what they will encounter in the future, which Rei doesn't understand. The next day, Rei and his team decide to visit Gideon to meet up with Figaro and look for jobs that they can take, but before they can decide, Rei asks Rook about his skills, and Rook claims that his skills include taming monsters and other creatures, which Rei finds very different. As they talk, Rei realizes that Marie is also sitting there, which startles him, but Marie claims that as she also wants to visit Gideon, she wants to accompany them. At Gideon's road, one of the merchant vans gets attacked by goblins, but as they run, they soon meet their demise from a much more ferocious monster. On the other end, the group makes their way towards Gideon on a carriage with a creature Marilyn, which Rook won when he was on one of his quests, and also shares that he has a jewel in which he can store these monsters, which Rei finds amazing. After that, Marie shares that as she works as a journalist, she won't take part in combat, and soon the group encounters their first enemy in the form of goblins, which are fighting with a merchant group. Rei and the team decide to help them. And the way Rook and Babylon fight makes Rei and Nemesis amazed as they take on more enemies at once. As the merchants try to thank the adventurers, they get attacked by a unique boss monster named Gardaranda, who is on the wanted list. As Rei moves forward to attack the monster, it releases a poisonous air around it, making Rei and the others feel lethargic. Marilyn decides to counter the monster, but it quickly loses, making Rook call it back before the monster can kill it. Babylon comes forward, but her attacks don't affect the monster either, so they retreat, and Rei attacks the monster without much success. Marie throws an elixir toward Rei, which buffs his ability for some time, so he decides to take on some damage to recharge his skill named Vengeance is Mine. As Rei keeps on getting attacked, he is cornered by Rockbird, but Rook and Babylon decide to take it on, so Rei decides to keep on fighting for his party. Soon they launch their attack, but the monster doesn't die, and the elixir effects wear off too, which makes Rei remember Cheshire's words, and he realizes that the monster's heart is in its stomach. But as Rei decides to not give up, Nemesis gets an evolutionary change and evolves into another blade, which turns out to be her second form, making Rei and Nemesis feel invincible. The duo attacks the monster from all sides, realizing that it regenerates its weaker part much more quickly, so they decide to damage it and turn back to its first form to finish the fight with their next blow. As soon as they decide to land it, the monster almost attacks them, but an unknown arrow helps them and they manage to defeat the monster. Marie reaches to their rescue and shares a healing potion, making Rei feel a bit more comfortable. Rook also joins with a tamed Rockbird, which is now under Rook's control. As they leave, Rei thinks about if it's a game or not as the people take their deceased in a magic box. In another dimension, a creature comments on new player skills, thinking about how he was able to defeat Gardaranda as the monster was much more powerful. In the town, as Rei tries to use his newly acquired skills, he meets up with a penguin who offers him an elixir which instead of healing him gives him puppy ears, which makes Rei extremely angry, but the penguin manages to run away by saying Rei's name. After that, Rei encounters Marie, who makes a portrait for him to make fun of him, and soon Rei visits one of the clothing stores to get a different dress as he watches Druk in a new coat. While getting new clothes, Rei watches some people playing a game and decides to try his luck, but he only gets funny things. After some time, he goes outside to open one of the balls he got from the store and turns it into a horse. Rei tries to ride it, but he falls. This makes Nemesis sulk as it's a rookie skill and Rei should have it by now. Rei decides to look into it and realizes that the players learn it in starting a mission that Rei missed a long time ago, and now he can have this skill by buying it, which is very expensive. As Rei and Nemesis decide to take on some kind of job, they hear the cries of a girl who is being surrounded by a bunch of thugs, but before they can help, another person intervenes and gets beaten up, making Rei the hero as he punches one of the thugs, which makes other thugs run away in fear. The player introduces himself as Hugo and claims that he couldn't fight as his skills take a lot of time to prepare. The girl from before approaches them and asks them to save her little brother as there is a gang that captures little kids for ransom and also kills them, which startles Rei, and the trio happily accepts the mission. Another girl named Psycho joins them, and Hugo informs Rei that Psycho is a fellow adventurer. Psycho informs the group of the gang's location, and all of them move towards it before making a quick stop where Hugo gets into a robotic form. After that, as the group contemplates how to attack the gang, Hugo informs Rei that as his embryo is a maiden, there is a rumor that such people consider this world more a game, which Rei denies, but Hugo claims that what he is saying is the truth. Soon, a bunch of vans carrying kids arrive, and the group makes their moves. Hugo and Psycho remain outside to deal with the thugs, while Rei gets inside to rescue the children. But as they go inside, they encounter undead kids, which sadden both of them, but they still defeat them to calm their souls. Outside, Hugo gets attacked by a huge wolf monster who claims that he is one of the gang leaders and mocks them by eating children's heads in front of them, which angers Hugo, so the duo decides to merge their ability to finally defeat him, and it turns out that Hugo is also a maiden's master. Inside, Rei encounters malnourished kids and also watches a kid on some kind of ritual bed, but as soon as Rei takes the kid, he gets attacked by the other boss. Rei manages to get up and takes his hand off, making the leader feel afraid. Though he still attacks Rei, but he doesn't get affected by them due to Nemesis' second form, so the leader runs outside just to see that his partner is already dead and is lying on the ground. Rei approaches him, and even though the leader uses one last powerful attack, Rei defeats him easily. The leader decides to offer Rei some money, but he refuses and kills him, and decides not to use his item box. Hugo and Psycho come clean about their relationship, and the group decides to rescue the children in the dungeon. But as they get inside, some of the thugs try to loot the boss's item box, which releases one last piece of resentment which it stored and consumes everything in sight, leading towards the formation of a unique boss monster. As the group gets outside, Rei asks Hugo to leave with the children and decides to fight the monster on his own. Nemesis claims that she is getting some amazing feelings from time to time that she is unable to understand, but as they fight the monster, Nemesis realizes that it's because of the resentment that the leader before it died, so they decide to use it against it. But the monster starts chasing Hugo's van, so Rei decides to attack him by cutting off his legs, and they realize that its weak point is its head, but before they can attack the monster leader, it kicks their butt and Nemesis hardly manages to save Rei, so she pours some medicine into Rei's mouth with the help of a kiss, and decides to counter the monster herself till Rei gets up. Rei gets a dream where he watches himself as a kid when he helped the girl, but still while saving her, he almost died. His brother saved him and even appreciated him for his bravery and made him realize that his choices have endless possibilities. While Rei is dreaming, he has a company of a little girl who shows herself and claims that she is the full version of the monster Gardanda, and she wished to help him in his quest. Rei finally wakes up and joins Nemesis to fight against that huge monster. The duo finally manages to defeat it, and it also gives Rei the skill of horse riding, and as they walk towards the town, they decide to even work harder next time to save more people. In town, Hugo meets up with the mysterious penguin who claims that Rei defeated the monster. Hugo shares his worries that if Rei knew about their plan, he would definitely interfere, but Penguin claims that if their plan goes smoothly, they will end the war with little collateral damage and laugh. And that will be it for today. This anime is getting more and more interesting with each episode. What do you guys think? Is this a game world or maybe some alternate dimension? And who is managing all of this? Let us know down in the comments. And thanks for staying till the end. If you want to find more awesome animes like this to watch on your feed, do subscribe to Annie Recapped and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with the latest uploads. Peace!